Welcome to the Golden State with Mates post-game live. Apologies for the slight delay. I think we've got two people in here that were waiting. I apologize. Just had a few issues with the camera, but looking forward to hearing everyone's reaction from what is the Golden State Warriors' first win of the regular season, a good one at that, against Sacramento. Golden one center, a 122-114 win on the back of who else but Stephen Curry. 41 points, joining Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, and Reggie Miller as the only four players now in NBA history to have a 40-point elimination game backed up by another 40 piece in the next game against the same opposition. Before we get into it, I just want to just state first up, how good is it to have NBA basketball back? We're now 4 days in, and it is just unbelievable. The storylines going around the NBA at the moment. I watched, a bit of the Celtics, their game, obviously, against the Heat earlier. And then I watched a little bit of Victor Wembanyama as well, with the Spurs getting the job done in overtime there. Watching Wemby is just crazy. And then, of course, Luka and the Mavericks against the Nets. That shot, bank one. I don't even know what you want to call that. Unbelievable. But get your comments in here for me to read out in regard to the Warriors' first regular season win. As I said, I think the end of this game will be a little bit of a slight, I suppose, on the performance. The Warriors should have won this comfortably, should have got to a point where they could have had their bench come in over the last few minutes. That wasn't the case. They obviously had an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter and let that get down to 5. Fox had a chance to get it to 4 with his pair of free throws. Missed one with just over a minute left. So a frightening finish, I suppose, is what you would call it, which is funny because it's around Halloween time. But it was really disgusting. Like, it was a bad finish to the game for the Warriors. But I don't think that should overcome the fact that, a win's a win at the end of the day. It was an 8-point win. Yes, it was somewhat stressful, but I don't think, they never got back within a bucket. So it wasn't never as if they were going to lose that game. I thought they always had it under somewhat of control, and you do feel a lot more comfortable with Chris Paul out on the floor, as well as Steph Curry, obviously, in those final moments, even though, the Warriors did allow it to get back to a 5-point game, and some of their turnovers, some of their general offense across the course of those last few minutes were disappointing. So a good win nonetheless. I think it's important to realize that going into Sacramento, obviously a vibrant home crowd at Golden One Center against a very good team, a dynamic offensive duo in Fox and Sabonis. Fox goes for 39 in the end, and we saw why he was named Clutch Player of the Year in the NBA last season down the stretch with just making play after play. So he was fantastic, but it was ultimately too little too late for the Kings. And obviously for the Warriors, playing without Draymond Green, said, to be able to go into Golden One Center and pull out a win is a fantastic result, and a much needed one after the disappointment of Tuesday night against the Phoenix Suns. So, we have to start with Steph, right? You can get different Steph games where he goes for 30 plus, but this one, the thing that always stands out with Steph, and even in comparison to, I know I've already seen a contrast with Damian Lillard's 39 on his debut for the Bucks, is Dame got to the line, was it like 15 or 16 times? Steph has 41 on 19 shots, goes 14 of 19 from the floor, 7 of 10 from three-point range. Like, the efficiency is just on a completely different level. Goes to the line, I think, only on 6 occasions. It's just remarkable. That third quarter stretch, how lucky we are to continue to watch this even as he enters year 15, 35 years of age. He gets into those situations, those kind of heat check moments where you just don't think he's just not going to miss any jumper. And then he takes advantage of that by, of all his 14 baskets, the one that sticks out the most to me is the one where Davion Mitchell comes over to try and double team. Steph just dribbles out of it and ends up getting to the hole for a layup. And it is, and Doc Rivers was on the broadcast saying he didn't even know he was being double teamed there. And yet he was able to get away from it, get the layup. And he just takes, I thought the Warriors did a pretty good job of finding him on backdoor cuts a couple of times, getting him a few easy baskets to get him going, both the start of the game and start of the second half as well, I think. So it was just an all-around great Stephen Curry performance. The efficiency was on another level. It's somewhat surprising that he only takes 19 shots, although I think the Kings did pretty well to kind of switch their defense up on him. Basically, after that kind of 16-point burst in the third quarter, they started double teaming him on every possession. They had that one kind of midway, late third quarter where they double teamed him at half court, got a turnover, then Sabonis blew a layup, basically. So I thought their defense, Mike Brown, adjusted fairly well towards the latter part of the game, but the damage was done, really. And once Steph gets in a mood like that, he gets that wing three at the end, which is the night. That's the dagger to basically get rid of any faint hopes that the Kings had at that point. So just a great Steph Curry game. He seems to sometimes do this in seasons. I remember was it last season or the year before where he had that one against the Clippers where I think he went for was it 50? That was that last season. I don't know. I can't recall if that was last, but I just vividly remember the last couple of years, one of the last couple of years, Steph having 50 against the Clippers. That was at Chase, and he just kind of has these games early on in the season, and sometimes they're to win their first game kind of thing where he kind of just puts the team on his back a little bit and says, all right, we need to get off to a start here. And that's what he did. So, I mean, you run out of superlatives when you're discussing Steph Curry. There's not really too much more you need to say, but how fortunate we are to be able to witness this for a 15th season at 35 years of age. For him to be as good as he still is quite remarkable and a testament to all he does off the floor in terms of his off-season training, what he's done through preseason and training camp. It's just remarkable, and I'm sure we all can't wait to continue watching this for what seems like another 2 or 3 years potentially of this kind of MVP level form where he can just heat up and get to a point shooting wise where no one else can get to really in history. One player that can, and I just want to speak about him briefly because I think it was a bit of an underrated game. Klay Thompson. So this was not a Clay game, right? And there are a couple of times, his first half wasn't good. There are a couple of poor shot selection decisions, I suppose, early in the game. He had that one in the second quarter, which it was kind of an off the dribble, off balance pull up jumper, and it wasn't good. And I'm sure at that point, I, like a lot of Warrior fans, would have kind of been hands on head, thinking, okay, what's going on here? I just want to give Clay some credit because he would have been he'd be under some pressure at the moment. There's no doubt about that. I wrote an article based on Blue Man Hoop this morning saying who are the three most players under pressure going into this Kings game. And there's no doubt that Clay is one of them. And just in general with his form, because obviously the Warriors need him first and foremost to be at his best to be a championship contending team this season, and of course the whole contract storyline as well, which is not going to go away until he signs a contract. It just won't. It'll continue going all the way up to free agency or until whatever point he signs a new contract. So there is clearly some pressure there on a nightly basis for Klay Thompson, and I just thought his ability to not rush things, to not force things in the second half was really good, and he started to feel a little bit better about himself. So he finishes with 18 points on 7 of 12 shooting. 12 shots for Klay Thompson is pretty rare. Like, you not generally see him take 15, 16 shots minimum. And so I just thought his patience, I thought his general decision making, he had a couple of nice passes today, which on other days are going up for his own shot. And I think that was characterized by the final possession of the second quarter of the first half, where Steph, it was kind of a ghost screen. Clay sets up top of the perimeter for three. Most people in that situation would think Clay shooting that. No, he draws a second defender, finds JK in the corner for an open triple, nails it. That gives the Warriors the lead at 60-57 at halftime. And I thought that was just hugely important for a multitude of reasons. It was huge for Clay because everyone could see in that moment, hey, he didn't force a shot there. He made the right play, found an open teammate. And of course, it's big for Kuminga as well, because I thought Kuminga's first stretch wasn't good at all. And it just gave him, like, those last few minutes from Kuminga in the second quarter were better. And that was capped off, obviously, by the corner three. And so just for the confidence and the momentum of those two players in particular, but the whole team to go in with a lead at halftime, I thought that was a big play from Klay Thompson. And, I think you've got to show some respect to his decision making in this game, because there are a lot of times where he could have jacked shots, which we've seen perhaps against the Suns on Tuesday night and in the preseason. And I thought his decision making in general was really good. His defense continues to hold up pretty well. Like Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes didn't get off the leash much at all. Keegan Murray made a few shots. He's going to do that. He's a very good shooter, talented offensive player, so we get that. But Harrison Barnes goes for 33 in their season opener against the Jazz. And then what did he have today? Just having a look here. So Harrison Barnes goes for 10 points. So Harrison Barnes takes 5 shots. That's remarkable. Keegan Murray, 6 of 16 from the floor, 16 points. So kind of two wings there combined for 26 points and, take just 21 shots. It was really the Fox Sabonis show. I thought one of the Warriors' best, I thought he was one of the Warriors' best players. I thought the Sabonis battle again was absolutely fantastic. Thought Loon again held his own really well, and he just filled up the box score. So he finishes with 8 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, I think it was. 3 steals, a block, 4 of 6 shooting. Really good Loon game, because I thought he was outplayed by Nurkic on Tuesday game, which is rare because he's usually such a consistent presence. He had that little crossover into a dunk on Sabonis early in the fourth quarter, which was, I didn't believe what I was seeing. In fact, I don't think I've even seen a replay of it. I'd have to just go back and see it just to make sure and confirm that is in fact what I saw. It was absolutely unbelievable. But his defense on Sabonis. So Sabonis played reasonably well, but I thought most of his buckets came on Surridge, and when Loon was off the floor. He has 19 points, 18 rebounds, 7 assists. So big game for Sabonis, but I think the efficiency is always the big thing. 7 of 15 from the floor for Sabonis. So it wasn't as if he was a dominant presence. His box score looks fine. In fact, looks good. But in terms of his overall impact on the game, I thought Loon did a pretty good job of being able to negate him almost as much as what he wanted to do, obviously, in the first round playoff series last season. So good game for Kevon Looney, no doubt. Andrew Wiggins, funny one. Really funny one for me, because he starts out and there's a clear emphasis from the Warriors to get him going, from Wiggins himself to get going, both with his scoring. So he scores 6 of the first 8 points. First layup of the game, basically. Chris Paul finds him on a mismatch on the interior, lays it in. That's fine. 6 of the first 8 points, really gets up and going. And then just doesn't do much for the rest of the game. So he has 6 points, 3 rebounds in the first half a dozen minutes, and then finishes with 11 points on the night, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 13 shooting. Couple of block shots. I thought his defense was maybe a little bit better, but again, Fox got the better of him down the stretch. There's little doubt about that. I'm not sure how much you put that against Wiggins, because Fox can get the better of most players down the stretch. That's what he does. He's a fantastic offensive player and an incredibly clutch player, that's for sure. So I'm not sure how much of that you can put against Wiggs, but it was probably not as quiet. Like, it was a better performance than Tuesday night against the Suns, where he was really, really quiet. I thought this was a more impactful game. Like, he did more stuff, but he still didn't shoot the ball well. As I said, 5-13, 38.5% from the floor. And he scores basically 5 points over the last 45 minutes of the game. So the Warriors are going to need more out of him. The other thing is, like, when you're looking at the whole Kuminga thing, I thought Draymond was going to be the one that maybe in the long term hurt by Kuminga and his development and his growth in terms of minutes. It's clearly Wiggins right now is getting affected and impacted by Kuminga and what he's doing. So heading into the fourth quarter, Kuminga had played over one more minute more than Wiggins, which I found not astounding, but it's just surprising. Right, the fact that Steve is really trusting Kuminga to the point where he's playing him over Wiggins. So Wiggins ends up playing just under 27 minutes, and Kuminga plays basically right on 26 minutes. So Wiggins still plays slightly more, but they're basically almost 50-50 here. And I think that might have been the case too on Tuesday night, had Kuminga not had got the early foul trouble where he's limited to just 5 minutes in the in the first half. Like, you got to remember the fact that Kuminga ends up playing 20, 21 minutes on Tuesday night, and 15, 16 of those come in the second half. Like, he played a lot and obviously closed, which was a major storyline. And we thought that might be the case again because he closed the first half over Wiggs. But Wiggs obviously was given the Fox job down the stretch. Again, didn't necessarily stop him in any way, but I thought it was a little bit of an improvement, but you still want to see more. Like, ultimately, he has not shot the ball well. What is he now? 9 of 25 through 2 games. So you want Wiggs to get back to, two-way Wiggs, and he's going to have obviously some time. I'm not sure if he's in, the best physical shape. The fact that, you know, Steve's keeping him to 26, 27 minutes rather than getting him up in the 30s. I think that's a Wiggins thing, but I also think that's a Kuminga thing, which we can get onto. So I thought JK's first stretch wasn't good. It was much of Kuminga last season where, particularly offensively, he's kind of rushing things a little bit, and he's not sure necessarily where to fit in to the offense. Defensively, I think he's okay because you can always give him a job to do, right? Like, Steve can say, all right, go guard Fox, go guard Murray, go guard Malik Monk. Give him a job to do, and he can kind of lock in on that end. Defensively, it's fine. Offensively, early, I just thought he struggled to kind of know when to push the buttons when, if that makes sense. Like, it's like, and this was an issue with Wiseman all the time. It's like he's having to think all the time about what he needs to be doing. And ultimately, you want that to come naturally to everyone. And it's clear, like, there's still elements of, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't have the highest basketball IQ in the world. So it is a, one step forward, two steps back approach where you kind of trying to manipulate and work out what you're actually doing offensively. And it's pretty evident to me that there are times where he's still trying to figure things out offensively. But then there's other times where he is dynamic and he is assertive and he does know what he's doing. And I think when he's just aggressive, I think that's when you get the best of Jonathan Kuminga. And at the end of the day, I think Steve's doing a good job of not necessarily or not pushing him into being double-minded, I suppose, and being hesitant is probably the word. With the biggest thing for me with Steve and JK going into this season was he going to allow him to play through his mistakes? When he picks up a foul, when he turns the ball over, when he does this kind of stuff, like, will Steve allow him to play through his mistakes? And I think on the basis of the first 2 games, now I know Draymond being out does make a difference to that, but I think he's doing a good job of just allowing him to play through his mistakes. And so when there's some hesitancy and stuff like that, he's not dropping his confidence to a point where JK thinks that he's going to be pulled for every bad move he makes on the floor. I think he realizes now that I'm going to be able to make some mistakes, and Steve's still going to give me the opportunity because I'm talented enough, I'm impactful enough on both ends of the floor where he's going to leave me out there knowing that the good ultimately will outweigh the bad. And I think that's what happened on Tuesday night. He plays 5 minutes in the first half, comes back, plays 15, 16 minutes in the second half, has some errors, no doubt, misses the 2 free throws late. We get that. But ultimately had 12 points, was active on the board, 6 rebounds, closes over Wiggs, mainly because of that. So the good outweighs the bad there. And then I thought again, the first stretch wasn't great, but he comes back late in the first half and he makes a layup at the rim. Then he gets that pass from Clay and makes the corner 3. And all of a sudden, the momentum starts to come up, right? Third quarter, huge putback dunk. Nearly had another one, which he might have actually cost the Warriors 3 points there because that 3-point corner shot from Moody might have gone in. JK comes flying in, but you like to see it, right? And he could probably get 1 or 2 of those a game. And all of a sudden, well, that's adding 2 points to your box score. That's adding a rebound to your box score. Like, these things are adding up. And so he has another 12 points, 5 rebounds. I thought a couple of his rebounds were really strong. I think that's been an impressive part of his game throughout the first 2 games here. So I'm just so glad. I'm happy. It brings a tear to my eye. The fact that Steve is trusting JK to play through his mistakes, knowing that what I've got here is ultimately worth going through a little bit of pain for, which he just didn't do last season at times. He didn't want to do that through the playoffs. It'd be interesting right now if we were in a postseason scenario where, Kuminga would lie in the whole scheme of things. But during the regular season, an 82-game regular season, in order for JK to get to a point where he can be an impactful playoff rotation piece where he can play 20, 25 minutes, you have to go through these stages through the regular season where if you're Steve Kerr, you think, could I play someone I trust more right now? Maybe, yeah. But you know what? The end result with Jonathan Kuminga could be something really special. So we've got to go through this. And it hasn't been the same kind of dynamic, offensive scoring that we saw in preseason, but he's also not getting the opportunities to obviously, post up, have the ball in his hands. We get that, but it's still impactful. And when he does little stuff like the putback dunk and stuff like that, he's starting to use his physical tools and his athleticism in a way that is really impactful. So I thought he was really good. And obviously with him, you kind of join Moses Moody into the same conversation. Will Moses Moody ever miss another jumper? Like he missed that corner three over JaVale, where I think he was more focused on trying to draw a shooting foul to go to the line for 3 free throws than he was actually, because JaVale kind of closed out to him a little bit hard, and then Moses thought about it, then shot it, and I think he was, as I said, I think he was more focused on to draw the foul than he was to actually make it. Turns out he might have actually made it if Kuminga didn't come and get the offensive interference. But that was the only shot he missed. And the 3-point jumper right now is looking incredible. Like, you just think it's going in every time. Like, the confidence that he would have, the confidence that teammates would have, the confidence fans have in that shot going in. 10 points, 4 or 5 shooting, 2 of 3 from deep. Unbelievable. But it's the defense. It's the defense for me that is standing out for Moses Moody, even above the shooting. There's a few episodes ago, you can go back, and I think there's a YouTube video specifically on it, where I talked about the lack of activity from Moses Moody in terms of him just at times when he's on ball defending, he kind of allows his opponent to the rim and just kind of puts his hands up, straight up contest without really trying to do more in terms of disrupting the offensive player. Right now, his work, particularly off the ball, I suppose more so, I think there's still question marks on the ball, but off the ball, this is the most active I've seen. These 2 games are the most active I've seen Moses Moody throughout his entire career. So he has another 3 steals and a block. I think he had 3 steals and a block on Tuesday night against well. Just double checking. No blocks. So just the 3 steals. And he had 3 steals and a block in the first half against the Suns on Tuesday night. This is super active. And this is what turns him in from a good shooter who can be a nice offensive player to a really, really good 3-and-D player, where you're actually starting to questioning after the Suns game is why is Clay playing 36 minutes and Moses only playing 18 or 16, 18, whatever it was? A few of those Clay minutes should be going to Moses. And you could even say that again. So he plays 21 today. It's a real credit to him and Kuminga, where those guys play a combined 47 minutes. And you're almost asking yourself, can we get some more for them? Can we get Kuminga up close to 30? Can we get Moody to 25? And this is the thing, these are not you go back to 12 months ago, last season, these were disastrous minutes for the Warrior bench unit when their young players were in. Now, this is a real positive to the point where we're saying, does Clay need to play as much as he does? Clearly, Steve doesn't think Wiggs needs to play as much as he does because his minutes are getting limited by probably both Kuminga and Moody. It's not necessarily as much as what we saw in preseason, but it was never going to be because they just got more opportunity throughout the preseason games. But it is equally impressive. I think they've both been fantastic. I think the Warrior bench. Let's talk about early in the game. So the Warriors get out to a 13-7 start. Good opening. And then Steph goes to the bench, and it's a 7-minute period where the Warriors score 11 points and really struggle offensively. And it's at that point you're thinking, hey, hang on, this is what we should have Chris Paul for. and this is why we have Chris Paul, is to be able to orchestrate offense in these scenarios. It didn't happen. The Kings open up a double-digit deficit. Steph comes back in and starts being Steph again, is an offense all to himself, dominating, and the Warriors are just completely different with him on the floor, which has been the case for years, right? Steph's a plus 13 in the first half where the Warriors are up 3. But then the third quarter, that is the ideal scenario. And we saw it in the third quarter on Tuesday against the Suns as well, where Steph is on the bench, has those 16 points in 6 minutes or whatever it was. Unbelievable. And then he leaves the game, the Warriors are up about 10, and you think, okay, what can they kind of do here with him on the bench? Well, they extended the lead. Chris Paul completely took over that period, was orchestrating everything offensively so effectively. At the end of the third quarter, Chris Paul had 10 assists, 0 turnovers. And this is classic Chris Paul. The feeling that you get watching the game, it is so much less stressful watching Chris Paul play than it is Jordan Poole. And this is nothing against Jordan Poole, but it's a very Russian roulette thing with him. It's the second time in as many episodes that I've said Russian roulette. But it's a Russian roulette thing with him where you don't know what you're going to get on a possession-by-possession basis. He can heat up. He could have 10 points in a couple of minutes. Chris Paul's not doing that for you. But Jordan Poole could equally have 3 missed shots and 2 turnovers in the space of 2 minutes. And you know what? Chris Paul's not doing that either. He's securing the ball. He's running the offense. He's getting teammates good open looks. Like even there's a simple one, I think it was maybe it might have been early in the fourth quarter, where he just ran a simple pick and roll with Saric, but Saric kind of just popped out to a mid-range jumper. Easy offense. CP found him. Saric hit the shot. And it's just easy offense. And you think to yourself, that's just so comfortable. But you know what? It's 2 points. It's a bucket. And that's like all you need, especially when you're trying to, keep a lead like they were in the fourth quarter. Now, obviously, they got out of a rhythm, started turning the ball over a little bit late. Kings got back into the game. But some of the stuff from Chris Paul late in the third quarter, even early in the fourth quarter, was just like, this is perfect. Steph Curry's on the bench and you are still getting good looks. And there are going to be games like the Suns on Tuesday when you don't make those ones and you just miss jumper after jumper. But at the end of the day, if you're Steve Kerr, you're living with that. And I just thought the offense, when Steph was on the floor late in that third quarter, what Chris Paul was able to do in just managing and controlling the game was just unbelievable. So he finishes with 10 points, 12 assists. Still not shooting the ball overly well. I mean, he made a nice midi in the fourth quarter there. But so he finishes 5 of 12, missed his 2 3-pointers, has 3 turnovers in the end, all of which came in the fourth quarter. But now he's up to 21 assists and 4 turnovers, I think, on the after the 2 games. Like doing what you'd expect Chris Paul to do. And it's not necessarily the minutes with Steph and Clay. It's the minutes when Steph is off the floor and he's got Kuminga and he's got Moody and there's still offensive options there. And I'll speak about it ad nauseum. This should be a Warrior bench that ultimately, once Draymond comes back, particularly, like this is a Warrior bench that should be top 5 in the league, which is a long way from where they were at this exact point 12 months ago. Just talking about like the rotation in general. So 9 deep in this one, no Corey Joseph, but then Trace Jackson Davis plays 4 minutes and 41 seconds because Looney goes out in the third quarter and then Saric gets into a little bit of foul trouble. So debut for TJD, 441. Just had the 1 rebound. Didn't do a whole lot, but it was +7 in those minutes because that was late in the third when you had CP out there with Kuminga, Moody, and I think Peyton was out there at the same time as well. Clay might have been in there for a stretch. I don't think Jackson Davis will play much going forward, particularly when Draymond comes back. But I think, Saric only had 4 fouls at that stage. It wasn't like he was up to his 5th. So clearly there's some trust there from Steve. It's like, okay, I could probably let Dario play a little bit here, but he's up against Sabonis. We've seen in preseason that Jackson Davis can actually do a pretty decent job on Sabonis. And so he brings him in for 5 minutes. And you know what? He didn't do much personally, but it's +7. Wasn't a disaster. They win those minutes. And so if you're Steve, like that's what you want. So I think it's just nice to have, your Jackson Davis, Pajemskis, who can probably come in and play a role. And they're not going to star or anything, but they can play a few minutes here and there. They're going to cope okay. They're going to be okay. But yeah, Joseph, no minutes. Not surprising after what we saw in his brief 3 minutes and 41 seconds against the Suns on Tuesday. So 9 deep. Kuminga plays 26 minutes. Saric plays 14, 17. Saric, 2 of 5 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3, 4 fouls. Not concerned. Not concerned at all, just because you can still see the elements of him and Chris Paul there working perfectly. A few foul issues, a few interior defense issues, particularly when he's going against Sabonis. But again, he's not going to be guarding the likes of Sabonis on a night-to-night basis. It's mostly going to be against backup bigs, and I think that he and Chris Paul with that pick and roll, pick and pop, they're going to exploit so many second units, so many. Peyton plays 18 minutes. GP, 2 of 4, 1 of 3. So he misses his first 2 triples, and it starts to become a talking point, right? Where he's wide open in the corners, and you're wondering to yourself, can he be out here if he's not actually going to stick any of these threes? Because the defense is just going to leave him wide open. But he did make one in the second half, or was it the second quarter? One of the two, anyway. So he's going to continue to he's going to need to continue to take and hopefully make those shots. Ideally, he's at least league average. Like, you're going to be wide open like that. You've got to be league average at a minimum. And, really, if you're him, why can't you be a 40% guy? Where, like, I know he's not a great shooter, and defenses, he could probably shoot 40%. Defenses probably still aren't going to guard him. But why can't he be a 40% three-point shooter from the corners? Because they are wide, wide open. If not, then that's going to limit some of his minutes. I thought he did a decent job at times against Monk. They did a pretty good job of making Malik Monk a passer in this game. So he had 9.6 assists, took just 4 shots. I thought Peyton and others did a pretty good job of making him a passer. And to Monk's credit, I thought he did a pretty good job as a playmaker as well. But I think you'd prefer to have that than him, going off for 20, 25 points kind of thing. So overall, good result. I don't think I've got too much else to say here about this one. Solid result. And I think Steph's 41 will obviously get the headlines, but I thought it was actually a pretty good team performance particularly in that second half. First half, it was Steph or nothing, because you saw he was plus 13 when he was on the floor, minus 10 when he was off. So it was all or nothing there. But the second half was actually a good team performance. Steph goes big in the third quarter, but the second unit actually not only holds but extends that lead. Chris Paul runs the offense perfectly. Kuminga and Moody, very impressive. Clay, underrated game from Clay Thompson. 18 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. It doesn't jump off the page to anyone. It really doesn't. But it was, if you just go back and watch the game, it was just solid Clay Thompson, right? It was good decision making. And, unfortunately with Clay recently, like, it's been feast or famine. He's either making his shots or he's not. And it's either good or it's bad as a result. This was kind of a decent game. It's not great. It's not 25, 30 points, which I'm sure he would like to get. It's just solid basketball, making the right decisions, making the pass to the wide open teammate when it's there, not forcing things. I think that's an important takeaway for me from the game. Underrated Klay Thompson game, because I and others have been heavily critical of him, and for good reason. So if we're going to do that, then we also need to give him his props, even in games where, it's easy to give him his props when he goes for 40 and makes 10 threes. It's easy to do that, right? I think it's important that we give him his props as well when, 18 points, 7 of 12 shooting, efficient, solid game. So I like it. Looney, again, really good against Sabonis. So good win. As I said at the start, Draymond out to go into Sacramento, for Fox to go for 39 and to get an 8-point win. Very good. Shooting, you're probably not going to shoot as well as they did particularly in that second half. Like you go 53% from the field, or 55% from the field, I think it was. 55.2% from three, 43.8% from deep. Sorry, 55.2% from the floor, 43.8% from deep. That's hot shooting, you would say. But then again, it was cold shooting on Tuesday night against the Suns, and it all ultimately works itself out in the end, and back to the mean where hopefully you high 40s from the floor, and hopefully high 30s from three. So big back to back coming up here. So you got Houston, who have lost their opening two games on Sunday, and then New Orleans Pelicans on Monday. Sounds like there won't be any resting going on, I don't think, for the first back-to-back. There shouldn't be anyway. I know this is a 3-game in 4-day stretch, but it's the start of the season. Like, we shouldn't be. I know CP's 38, Steph's 35, Clay's 33, but, I don't think they need to be resting just yet. I think Clay said he plans on playing uh, both games against the Rockets and the Pelicans. Draymond is obviously a big watch. I know Steve said that he could be back on this road trip. Now, did he mean by this road trip, did he mean one of these two games? Because they actually have these two games and they go back to Chase Center for one game and then play, another 4, I think, on the road. So if he means on this road trip, then it would actually be one of these two games coming up. We'll wait and see. He's obviously going to be a big player coming back for Golden State, but I actually think this team's okay without him. Like, I don't think this is going to be a disaster where all of a sudden, if Draymond was to miss 10 games, let's say, all of a sudden they're like 3-7 like they were last season. I think even without Draymond, they can hopefully get to, I think, a 5-5 record. If they're 500 after 10 games, 8 of which are on the road, I know 5-5 doesn't sound pretty at all. It doesn't sound exciting. It's not a great start, but I think that's actually pretty solid given 8 road games. And this is a good start against the Kings tonight. Good performance. Steph Curry, absolutely unbelievable. If you've got any comments or anything, you can tweet me at POK252, POK252. On Twitter, you can leave a comment. I'll put this episode up, obviously, on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, please do. It'd be greatly appreciated. Other than that, you can find my daily content on bluemanhoop.com. Looking to do another post-game live after the Rockets game on Sunday. But otherwise, I'll see you then. I probably won't be doing a post-game live the following day because it's actually my mum's birthday, so I think we're doing something for that. I'll try and watch the game, obviously. In fact, I know I will watch the game. I probably just won't have the time to be able to do a post-game live. But other than that, guys, thank you very much to anyone that tuned in and to those of you who have got through to this 38-minute mark of the post-game live. Enjoy your next couple of days and celebrate this first Warrior victory of the season. Cheers.